What is going on, everybody? Nathan King here from Auburn Undercover. Welcome into the Eagle Wakeup here inside of Bridgestone Arena. They are getting closed down here. Hopefully, you guys can hear me okay. As Florida just took down Texas A&M, getting set up for tomorrow's SEC championship game, which Auburn will be a part of. Auburn returns to the SEC title game, obviously for the first time since 2019. They take down Mississippi State today in the semifinals. Super physical game that Auburn was able to adjust down the stretch and get the win. Sort of unsurprising the way Mississippi State came out and played. It was very similar to how they played against Tennessee. Obviously, they pulled off that big upset against the Vols, really by just taking it to them, but on both ends of the floor, being the aggressor in the paint. Auburn only had 5 turnovers the previous day against South Carolina. They surpassed that in only 7 minutes against Mississippi State. So the Bulldogs had Auburn sort of out of sorts on offense. Auburn was shooting the ball just fine. They finished shooting 50% in the game. They shot 32% from beyond the arc, but they were just the pressure that Mississippi State was applying. These officiating crews, if you guys have been watching the SEC tournament this week, you know that these officiating crews have been letting a lot slide, and that plays exactly into the hands of a team like Mississippi State to be able to go in, play physical, and get up in your grill, really. Bruce Pearl said it ahead of the game. He said, look, Mississippi State's going to get up in our shorts, and that's exactly what happened. But Auburn adjusted. Like I said, they continued to shoot well in the first half. They eventually took a lead. Chris Moore had a big three-pointer there in the first half for Auburn to take a lead. They went to halftime tied 31-all, but that wasn't good enough for Auburn. Mississippi State was out rebounding Auburn, and look, that was something that was a problem in the 2 previous regular season matchups between these teams. Between those 2 games, of course, Auburn lost in Starkville and they won at home in Neville Arena. Between those 2 games, Mississippi State out rebounded Auburn by a combined 24 boards in those 2 games. They were out rebounding Auburn by 12 in the first half alone. Mississippi State had more offensive rebounds. They had 12 of them than Auburn had total rebounds in the first half. So that obviously was a big issue for the Tigers, and we talked to them afterwards in the locker room, and everybody said it was Chris Moore, the senior forward for Auburn, that kind of kicked the coaching staff out and gave everybody a little bit of a message that seemed to obviously resonate. We didn't get the exact wording of what it was. Janai Brew mentioned it after the game. Dylan Cardwell said, he said, pick up your britches a little bit. That was kind of the PG-13 version of it, though. And so, and Auburn obviously went out and responded. Rebounding was the thing they really needed to fix in the second half. In the second half, it took Mississippi State 9 minutes to grab an offensive rebound, so the Tigers were doing a much better job on the defensive glass there. They did get out rebounded in this game, but they were +4 on rebounds in the second half. So they adjusted on that front, and really it felt like Auburn was the aggressor in the second half. They came out, were a little bit more dynamic, made more plays down the stretch. Mississippi State had a few runs here and there, but it was a very balanced performance for Auburn. 5 players in double figures, led by Chad Baker-Mazara. He had probably the biggest shot of the game. Teams are kind of going back and forth. There's a lot of officiating if you watch the game. There were a lot of whistles, very heavy whistles there in the second half. But once those slowed down, it was a really high-level basketball game there. Teams are going back and forth. Mississippi State had cut it down to just a couple possessions. And then Chad Baker-Mazara hits a huge three-pointer with just under 2 minutes left. Jalen Williams gets a block on the other end. Mississippi State also had another play where they just threw it away, just threw it straight out of bounds. Couldn't tell if he thought the official, they're wearing black uniforms. I kind of wondered if he thought the official was one of his teammates running along with him. But then Shaquille Moore, the guard, was kind of up in the corner as well. So either way, just a bad pass turnover for Mississippi State. And Auburn was able to convert their free throws at the end of the game. Auburn shoots 77.3% from the foul line in this game. Mississippi State, one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the SEC, they shot 63%. So Auburn will be they'll be a little bruised tomorrow. This was obviously a really physical game. And they knew that coming in, but now they've got to get ready to play the team that beat them worse than anybody has all season. Matchup-wise, this is probably Auburn's toughest matchup in the entire SEC. They'll play the Florida Gators here on this floor, noon Central Time on ESPN tomorrow on Sunday, looking to win an SEC championship. Of course, there's a lot of storylines in this game. Todd Golden, of course, is a former Auburn assistant, thinks very highly, of course, of his former mentor, Bruce Pearl. Him and Stephen Pearl are great friends. Talking to Todd Golden after the game, he said, I wish it didn't have to be Auburn. He said, I'd be lying if I wasn't saying, I wish we were playing any other team than Auburn. But Florida has been on a great run here. They survived Georgia in that first game and then have really played well the past couple games. They absolutely smashed Alabama here last night, scored over 100 points in that game. And then today against Texas A&M, they go down 18 in that game and are able to shoot their way back out of that one. There aren't many teams in college basketball that are playing better on the offensive side of the ball over the past month and a half than the Gators. You really look at their resume and their schedule, and going all the way back to when they beat Auburn. They beat Auburn by 16 points there in Gainesville. Nobody else has beaten Auburn, that well this season. From then on until now, they don't have a bunch of bad losses. They lost at Vanderbilt on the last day of the regular season. I think that sort of drew some concern for some people, but they've come in here to Nashville and proven that they are one of the best teams in the SEC. Of course, they're going to have an opportunity to play for a championship, and Florida's definitely one of those teams, a lot like Auburn, where you kind of look at them in your NCAA tournament bracket right now, and if you're one of the top seeds in the country, you want no part of Florida or Auburn come Selection Sunday. So should be a fantastic game here on Sunday inside of Bridgestone Arena. Be really meaningful for Auburn, of course, to hang a banner. Bruce Pearl's always chasing history, always chasing championships, and it would be, of course, their second SEC tournament title as Auburn's head coach. It would be fourth SEC championship overall for Bruce Pearl at Auburn, and Florida's obviously looking to get back to some prominence. Only year two for Todd Golden. They've taken a bunch of steps in the program, have gotten really far, and like I said, are going to be super dangerous in NCAA tournament time. This was the worst matchup of the season, in my opinion, for Auburn in terms of, you looked at the individual matchups of them going to Gainesville. Todd Golden even mentioned it after the game today. Florida was coming off of a bye. Every SEC team had that week where they didn't play a midweek game. That was Florida's. Auburn was banging at that point in the season. Of course, it was a grind, so Florida took advantage of that. They were on their home floor. Florida was up by more than 30 at one point. Auburn was able to kind of come back. I believe Florida missed their shots in the last 7 minutes of the game, I think, and so that made the score look a little bit better if you're Auburn. But really, it's the combination of Florida's size in the front court. Tyrese Samuel is one of the most physical and athletic big men in the SEC, just like a guy like Tolu Smith that Auburn saw today. And then Micah Handlocken is another guy that was an Auburn target in the transfer portal. And he was a guy who played really, really well in that first meeting. They have a ton of size in the front court, and they have a ton of size in the back court as well. Auburn has a good backcourt this season, but they have had some issues dealing with lengthier guards. Florida's got about 3 or 4 guys that A, can shoot the ball, and B, can be physical and lengthy on defense. And again, the way this tournament is being called, the way the SEC tournament is being called, the more physical you're able to play, the more comfortable you are with playing physical on defense. That's going to definitely create an advantage if that is your style of play. The Gators are better on offense than they are on defense. Auburn's obviously a little bit better defensively than they are offensively, so should be a great game. It'll be really tough for Auburn to win if Florida shoots the way they have the past couple days, but they also haven't played a defense as good as the Tigers since getting here to Nashville, so should be a fantastic matchup. Auburn's, Janai Broome was pretty good for them today, but they're going to have to look at him and Jalen Williams to really step up and be the consistent players that they've been all season. Auburn got pretty good point guard play today. Not a ton of scoring from Aiden Holloway. Trey Donaldson had 10 points. Thought he ran the offense really well. But just in terms of how they took care of the ball and how both players ran the offense, thought they played really well. Denver Jones was big in spots. Chad Baker-Mazara had that big shot at the end of the game. Of course, he was their leading scorer in the game. It's been a good all-around performance for Auburn in 2 games in Nashville so far, and they're hoping that continues for one more in the championship game here on Sunday. So we will see you guys then for all the Auburn basketball coverage from today and into Sunday. Please go head over to auburnundercover.com, and then just a couple hours after the game, win or lose for Auburn, they're going to learn their NCAA tournament fate. You look at Joe Lunardi from ESPN; he actually had them up to a 3 seed as of this afternoon, as we're recording this here on Saturday. Had Auburn all the way up to the 3 line. We will see if they've done enough. You might feel even stronger about that if they're able to go out and beat a team like Florida. But the consensus right now is I think they definitely have worked themselves off of the 5 line. So I feel like at worst, this was another quad 1 win. This was their second quad 1 win of the season. The South Carolina game didn't end up being a quad 1 win because you actually beat them so bad you pushed them out of the top 50 of the net rankings. But this game for Mississippi State, beating Mississippi State in this game in the semifinals, does end up being a quad 1 win. So Auburn's now got 2 quad 1 wins on the season. I think they are definitely in the territory of getting a 4 seed in the tournament. We'll see what happens. Crazier things have happened, but you also have the factor that Kentucky and Alabama were kind of hanging around on that 4 line as well. They both lost. They both weren't able to do anything. They didn't win a game in Nashville, especially if Auburn's able to win tomorrow. There's a pretty good argument to be made that they are above those 2 teams on the 4 line, potentially at the end of the 3 line. And so we'll see how it goes. It'll be a super, super eventful Sunday, of course, for Auburn basketball, trying to hang another banner, trying to win an SEC championship here in Nashville, and then finding out where they'll be playing to start the NCAA tournament. So we'll have it all covered for you guys over at Auburn Undercover. I am Nathan King. We'll see you guys over there.